of the Guyanese people, to free, fair, periodic local government elections to be respected. Nowhere on reasonable demand. It was within the expectation of our people, and no government that considered itself to be a responsible government would defy the right of the people to grassroots and participatory democracy. We have wanted negotiations, as all responsible politicians ought to negotiate, not to wait the day to use prorogation as a dagger on our throat and ask us to negotiate when there is a threat to our democracy. We cannot submit to this kind of bullyism and state terrorism upon the National Assembly. We wanted, sir, to save taxpayers' money and to stop our debts from spiraling with loans that are being allocated for projects over which there is no public procurement commission to be able to receive complaints of unjust and unfair practices in the procurement process. And this government, in violation of the Constitution that commands the establishment of such a Constitution, decided it will not, and allow this tip of state to flounder, having this huge hole at the bottom that is called corruption, that is caused mainly by procurement processes not being responsible to any law or any tribunal. And so our demands have been eminently fair and reasonable. Why shouldn't we, in a country notoriously publicized, and for which so many people, including the former speaker, recognize that there is endemic corruption in Guyana, why shouldn't we have a chairman of the Integrity Commission to be able to receive the assets of elected members, public officials, and chatries and all the thoroughbreds should submit their incomes for scrutiny? Why shouldn't that commission be working as a commission established under Constitution? Why shouldn't we inquire why billions of dollars are being funneled to a company, ostensibly a government company, to enter into contracts and to invest our monies, the people's monies, into projects like Specialty Hospital that have floundered and that have been tainted by corruption and sleaze which have been admitted by the government? Why should we not ask in this Parliament that we be provided answers and that we should be listened to? But these are only some of the infractions that we have been pointing to this government that forced the government to flee from the no-confidence process in the National Assembly. And therefore, it is, as I said, not a D-Day today, it is D-I-S. It is a day of infamy and shame. Our executive has dissed this National Assembly, has dissed the people of Guyana, and we hope that our people are listening and paying attention, and that they will in fact respond in kind to the government that has disrespected them and has now violated their Parliament, disrated their Parliament, and has now made us the pariah in the CARICOM and perhaps in the Commonwealth. We will hope, sir, that as much as this Parliament has now been prorogued and the slate is wiped clean of this motion that I ought to have moved today, that would not daunt us, that will not deter us from coming back again to bring this motion whenever the Parliament reconvenes and to make sure that justice is done to what has started out to be a very viable route under the Constitution to have a peaceful change of government or a peaceful process by which a government can resign and we can go back to the polls and we can renew our mandate from the people. Long live Guyana, sir. Long live the
signals my concern and alarm over the point at which we have found ourselves today. It is, I think, an exceedingly dark day, and I believe that what we have before us is a coup d'etat, a coup by the executive of this country to seize power. Power, the Constitution says, is power to be exercised by the Parliament, not by the executive, not by the President, but by these bodies conjointly. And we today find ourselves in a situation where an executive faced by a series of scandals, each of which would have brought down a government in any democratic state, indeed anywhere in this country. Any single one of the actions that we have been considering over the last and indeed have brought down governments in this region. And yet today, in a cowardly bid to avoid the heat that is the result of their misdemeanors, the government has sought to use powers within the Constitution to deny this House an ability to exercise the sanction which the Constitution has enshrined for the legislature. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to make a couple of observations on the importance of the no confidence motion. But before that, let me say that we should not be disheartened, we should look forward. And as the last speaker said, so colleague and brother, the Honorable Mr. Nagamutu, we are not without tools at our disposal. First of all of the motions, including the motions, essential motions of privilege, will and should be brought back by this Assembly as soon as it exercises the options which are available to him in the Constitution, and that is to recall the House. Whenever this House comes back, it will take up those issues which have been put in the meantime, Mr. Speaker, since this government has, by its action, sought to buy time for itself, and one has to ask, what is it going to do this time? They are to use the time, really, to continue to fill the pockets of their associates and colleagues. The individuals and businesses, Chinese nationals, Indian nationals, PPP associates, who they will give, whether it's broadcasting licenses, gold mining licenses, land grants, and the like. We, Mr. Speaker, I believe, ought to ensure that we will not honor any of those organizations. And the foreigners and the responsible corporate entities based in Guyana know that they are in the presence of a pariah of a government, and for as long as the government has that status, any agreement that the government signs with them will be reopened by us. In 1991, 1992, when we were trying, with the assistance of an economic recovery program, to privatize companies and indeed do many of the things which in 1989, when this House insisted that the opposition and government discuss the structural adjustment program, and we had such discussions led by Dr. Jagan, he was still, although he could not persuade us that he had better proposals, although he was persuaded indeed of the proposal, the validity of the proposal, he still went out and announced that they would reopen contracts and agreements. I'm happy to say that notwithstanding the reopening of those, they have stood even under a PPP government. Do you know why? Because they were implemented not with the type of fraud misdemeanors associated with the current agreements, but because they were properly negotiated and implemented. We know there's no transparency associated with the agreements from which the government is hiding. We know that. And therefore, let those persons who are seeking to get benefit from a government that is improperly appropriating powers that are not its own, let them be warned. Yes. Let them be warned. Mr. Speaker, the thing is that a confidence motion is not laid against the government normally for a single act. And I want to emphasize this. We are not looking at a situation in which the government has merely found an attorney general who pronounces and behaves as a miscreant, almost. We are not merely looking at a situation in which he admits to having utilized resources which were not properly his own. We are not only looking at a situation in which an attorney general charged with advising the government to stay within the law. That is the main function of an attorney general. He it is alone whose responsibility is to advise that cabinet to keep within the boundaries of the law and to ensure that he does not allow them to, if you like, imperil the executive. We have a situation in which the pronouncements suggest that this Attorney General has been or is in the process of threatening persons exercising democratic rights, rights which this government fought for and claimed to be the defender of, and in office was supposed to be the defender of. That's one case. 2 Tuesdays ago, these revelations were made in relation to the activities of the Attorney General. That's one. That is bad enough. But we've had a number of others. The Honorable Moses Nagumu mentioned the case of the Minister of Finance. But you have a situation in which the government, the President, Mr. Speaker, the President himself, has taken upon himself powers which are not his. The Constitution does give the President the right to not assent to bills that are passed and properly passed by this House. Nowhere, however, does the Constitution give him the right to decide, as he has done, as he has said publicly, that he will not pass bills unless those bills have the imprimatur of he and his cabinet. Unless a bill originates with a PPP MP, it is not to be passed in this House. He's gone further than that, Mr. Speaker. He has not only refused to assent to bills, properly passed by this House, and bills passed by a majority, but even bills that are unanimously passed by this House, he has not signed. That is against the spirit and the letter of the Constitution. There is a bill before the President, passed in 2013, which today remains unsigned. And this is the Constitutional Amendment Bill, which seeks to correct a constitutional conflict between the Fiscal Management Accountability Act of 2003 and the Constitution. The President has not even deigned, to acknowledge receipt, let alone to provide an explanation as to why he has not signed the bill. I am sure, and I have checked several times with the clerk, no such responses come from the President. And this, Mr. Speaker, is improper. And it is against the Constitution. As regards the other arguments, there are many others. I don't want to list all of them. We have a situation in which the president has also signed bills. He has signed into an act, the appropriation bills of 2012, 2013, and 2014. And in the case of the 2013 appropriation bill, notwithstanding the fact, 2012, notwithstanding the fact that he has signed the bill into law, he has had his Attorney General challenge the bill in the courts. Yeah. He has furthermore, and you can say he has a right, okay, so you don't think the bill is constitutional, you challenge it in the court. But at the same time, he has spent money. He has spent the money for a bill which he regards as unconstitutional. He has spent the monies approved, and he has spent monies which have not been approved. You can't have it both ways. You cannot have it both ways. If the act is legal, you should not be standing for it. You have a number of elements in these appropriation acts which the president has authorized his cabinet to spend against.
Lock them up.
And one of the things we have to do when we reconvene, Mr. Speaker, on the chairmanship to deal with this government is to bring these matters before the courts. Bring the minister and the other minister responsible before the court to account for these breaches of both the laws set out in the Fiscal Management and Accountability Act, drafted and implemented by this government itself, as well as by the Constitution. The Constitution, Article 217, is clear. No expenditure can take place, should take place, without first having the authority of the Parliament. And the other articles to which the President and his minister are fond of making reference are not to be interpreted in isolation. They have to be done conjointly. So, Mr. Speaker, what I'm really saying is that no government finds itself subject to a no confidence vote on the basis of one simple misstep. It is not the consequence of a misstep. We are reacting, in a sense, to a series of deliberate, contemptuous, and almost contemptible acts against our Constitution. And when I say, Mr. Speaker, that this is a coup d'etat, I mean that because you have a government. This is what we're looking at. You have a government, and I take the opportunity, yes, I take the opportunity to remind you, Mr. Speaker, many people thought when I spoke on the budget of 2014 that maybe I was too mild. I wasn't focusing on what was going on. If I remind you, Mr. Speaker, the entire content of the budget presentation that I made called upon the government to pay attention to the fact that it was a minority. And in order for the financial bills associated with the budget to survive, they needed to pay attention to cooperating with the other members of the House, which happen to be a majority. And you cannot, Mr. Speaker. Democracy has two elements. One is about one man, one vote. One woman, one vote. And that is what brings members into a parliament. Okay, that's one side. And the government seems to feel that that is the only side that matters. Once you are appointed into the House, whether or not you have the largest block of votes or your majority, doesn't matter. You have the presidency, you can do whatever you like. But there's a second element to democracy within the Westminster type constitution that we have. And that is within the House, decisions are made only by majority. Decisions are made either by a simple majority, whether it is 1 or 40. Decisions are made by consensus, preferably. Many places that happens. Or decisions are made on the basis of unanimous support for measures. All of that has occurred here. And notwithstanding that, the government has taken it upon itself, even when decisions are unanimous, not to implement them. That is the thing, Mr. Speaker. That is the standard. It's taken it upon itself not to implement them. What does that mean? It means that you have the presidency regarding itself as higher than the Constitution. Higher than the Constitution. So if the president doesn't like the MPs who initiated the motion, notwithstanding the fact it's a unanimous decision, they don't implement them. And what that implies is this, that the public has decided, one man, one vote, to provide the power of decision making to a majority in the House. The government has decided, notwithstanding the fact that it represents a minority, only what it decides must pass. That is not democracy. That is not what is enshrined in the Constitution. It is not what is enshrined in the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. You cannot be a minority and behave as though you are a majority. So you are a minority and you want to say, this is our budget, this is our bill, they must be passed. They must be passed. We don't have the votes, but they must be passed. You go to the public because you believe that the Guyanese public is ignorant, because you believe that the nuances of the complexity, for example, of the difference between the responsibilities of the clerk, responsibilities of the speaker, responsibilities of the president versus responsibilities of the House, because you believe you can confuse people with those subtleties, because you believe that people are so stupid, they wouldn't understand them. You now try to mask all of this by, in effect, seeking a minority rule. That is what it is about. That is what it's about. Bullyism, in fact, yes. So you have a minority, and the minority demands the right of us to be able to do whatever it is they want, notwithstanding what the majority thinks. What nonsense is this? Have our parents protested 1940, 1918, 1924, 1930s, 1953 and elsewhere? People have been shot in this country. People have been killed by police and soldiers, not only sugar workers, all types of workers. All ethnicities have been murdered in this country by colonial authorities, police, PPP authorities even, in pursuit of the defense of our rights. One man, one vote. And here we find a cabal, as like Thomas calls them, and my colleagues reminded me, criminalized in a criminalized state, demanding the rights that we have fought for so long, demanding to be able to take away our rights, exercise them, and be contemptuous of us. In the face of rights of a majority in this House, the government can tell us that they are going to prorogue Parliament so that we can cool off. So that we can cool off, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have, as I say, a series of issues before us. They are all important. And if the government wants anti-money laundering to pass, and it wants a budget that gives to a president, gives to a former president, income above and beyond that provided by the Constitution, income which the Constitution already provides for in abundance. The president, the former president's income is already generous compared to that of judges. It is already generous, Mr. Speaker. The Constitution provides that alone, superannuation and a pension. And that president added allowances which are unlimited. Allowances which are unlimited, and I remind my colleagues, because some of them believe, Mr. Speaker, that we are overdoing it. The benefits are unlimited. Even the adoption of children after a man has left the presidency is unlimited. And there are people out there getting $10,000, $10,000 having to stand up and humiliate themselves. Humiliate themselves. Spend those sorts of money and set them off against allowances for ministries which are not properly audited in any sense. So some Some have anything they want, and the majority have to punish and prostrate themselves around the country in order to get what are their rights. And ministers who themselves are disgraced, misappropriating government funds, admittedly. They are handing out money to people. They are doing us favors. I'm going to their father's money. It's our money. It's taxpayers' money. We are not here to prostrate ourselves before the PPP cabal, men who are often very, very close, if they're not on the wrong side of the boundaries of lawful and criminal activities. But that is what the government seems to be calling upon us to do. I see in a paper today, Mr. Speaker, that we are supposed, after cooling off, after the reset, to engage in consultations.
No way.
No way.
Well, Mr. Speaker, of course, I'm not in a position to make even the recommendations of that, but I would say that as far as those proposals are concerned, the government may find it useful to first consider remedying all the list of misdemeanors that I mentioned, as well as fixing by way of invoking the legal powers at their disposal, those ministers that we have mentioned as breaking the law, and those who are currently and whose examination, whose activities we are proposing to examine as soon as we come back. Mr. Speaker, you know, again, this question of the no confidence motion, it has some interesting origins. The case of King Charles I is an interesting one. I know that you are familiar with the history from which this constitution derives its origins. And when Charles prorogued his parliament in 1929, I don't think he had anticipated the route on which he was setting out. Charles I, of course, was the short king who lost his head. He lost his head directly as a result of the proroguing and the activities that followed from the proroguing, because he took all sorts of liberties, believing that he could play one side off against the other. Okay? So we are saying, Mr. Speaker, that this situation in which we find ourselves today is one that is undesirable. It casts a very dark and undesirable shadow over the country of Guyana, over our house, a house which has, I think, distinguished itself over the years in fighting for the rights of the poor and the downtrodden, for those who have, for those who our societies had actually brought to their knees in many ways. And it is not conceivable that we, on this side of the house, can sit and reconvene and allow the government to wipe the slate clean, as though nothing has happened, none of the misdemeanors have been committed. We demand our rights.